Welcome in. This is Hype Factor, a Fantasy Critic podcast for all the Fantasy Critic enthusiasts out there who just can't get enough talking about Fantasy Critic. I am one of your hosts, John, aka John32, and today I am joined by my good friend Marcus. Marcus, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay, John. I would say I'm just surviving at this point. It's been a long month and we're only halfway through it. So we're just kind of pushing through, trying to, put one foot in front of the other, and hopefully we'll get through and we'll make it out on the other side okay.
Just crawling to that finish line
It
of
really it
2025,
re-
eh? Yeah.
it's I can't remember a December that has been quite this crazy. Maybe it's all this podcasting that I've been doing that's adding to this whole everything. I don't know what it is, but it's been a lot. So we'll not that I regret any of the podcasting by any means, but it has been a lot these days. So
And for me, same. I'm just getting over a cold. I'm sure that people will be able to hear it, and that's taken the wind out of the sails a little bit. But I can't help thinking about maybe because it's that time of year with the Game Awards and everybody doing their wrap ups. I can't help but think about how great of a season it's been, not just for Fantasy Critic, but for games
just for
generally. Like
games, man,
2025,
really,
unbelievable.
yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. Probably more to say on that in the future, but just a really good year overall, and it's appropriate because today this is episode 15 of Hype Factor. It's going to be the penultimate episode of the year. We will have one more that will do a look ahead to 2026 and help prepare everybody for their draft. But really, this is kind of the final episode to close the chapter that was 2025 and the season that we had. We'll be wrapping everything up today, talking about everything that had happened over the year, our reflections on it, some of the surprises, and really that's going to be our topic this month is how did things go?
Yeah, a little
How was
recap, a little
2025?
recap for
Yeah, a
2025.
little recap.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little recap. So let's dive in.
Topic of the month.
So first off, Marcus, I guess we don't talk too much about our individual leagues, just kind of like how it intersects with the podcast. But why don't we start there? Why don't you tell us how did you do? How did you end up faring in your respective leagues?
Overall, I'm pretty happy with how things all played out for me. So I've mentioned many times on the podcast, four different leagues, and I won two of them with by a decent margin in both of those leagues. So one of them was our good friend Kevin Ainsworth, the Save the Game Media Community League. So I did win that one. There's a league of 12. I had finished that league, like I'd finished all my games by like August or something. I was like done real early and had such a mountainous lead. And then it did narrow a little bit, but I still won comfortably enough. Similar sort of situation in my other league that I won, the Trophy Room League. That one, though, we had 30 total teams, and I was first out of them all.
Yeah.
So, and that one again, I finished my team, or all the games had already released a few months ago by now, so I haven't had to make any adjustments. I think maybe since October ish, and won that one by a decent margin as well. League number three, we've talked about when we had Dan on our Tales from the Backlog League. Dan did comfortably win that. Actually, he ended up having a few. That was what was it? Europa Universalis 5 or
Mm-hmm.
6 something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one
Five. Yeah.
he 5 4 strike and he had Luminous Arise, and those are all kind of like in that
Wow.
November period, and so it just kind of launched him way past me. And I ended up finishing third. Actually, somebody else kind of snuck ahead of me. I think they might have had. Oh, I should know this off the top of my head. I think it was Metroid Prime and maybe Skate Story, something like that. So they kind of
Mm.
like just bumped up and they're ahead of me by a couple of points. But that was a deep and quite competitive league. So third place is still not too bad. I had the 16, there was 16 team league, and I had the 16th draft pick. So that kind of puts you a little behind the eight ball. I was a little bit, I don't tend to mind being towards the end of the draft, but in a league where people see, most people know what they're doing, things get thin
Yeah.
quickly there. And then maybe I'll finish off with our comment. The one league that we play in together is a Carpool Gaming League. And that one also has 30 teams, but we divided it up into three leagues. And I was fifth out of the 30 in that, and I was second in my league, second to friend of the show, Mr. Sean Capri. So he inched me out by I think
Mhm.
1.5 points or so, something like that. So he gets the league
The
beat.
Kirby Air Riders.
Kirby Air Riders, yep, yep. He swapped out Kirby
He
Air
was
Riders.
very
We talked about
relieved. He
this.
was very relieved.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. I think he was very
yeah,
relieved that he didn't actually make the wrong choice there. They ended up
yeah.
netting out
It did.
literally at the same point total.
Yep,
So
yep.
yeah,
Even slightly like half a point more than Cosmic Invasion, which he dropped for Kirby Air Riders. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
so yeah. So
Well,
that's a summary. So I'm overall pretty happy. I think like overall, winning two out of four is not too bad. So I'll take it.
that's very good. For me, I won none this year. I'm in two leagues. Finished. Well, I will say this. I think I'm going to finish third in both of them. Um, Shout out to Hambone Johnny, who's a friend of ours and
Yes.
is also in the Carpool Gaming League. He surpassed me in both. Looks like he's going to finish second in both and surpass me in both of those leagues. Kind of where I hadn't seen him coming.
Yeah.
Marcus. In some ways, I think you're. The leagues you won where you were basically finished by halfway through the year.
Yeah.
I think that in some ways that's pretty impressive. There's been a lot of games
A lot of
in the
good
second
ones
half
too.
of the
Yeah.
year. Yeah, like strong, surprising outcomes second half of the year, which I'm always a little bit wary of. And that's really impressive on your front. And Hambone, uh, uh, I would say, in a different fashion, kind of with second half of the year really coming out strong. So hedging me out. I'm third in both the Play Some Video Games PSVG League and Carpool Gaming. Out of those 30 people, those 30 teams, I'm looking like I'm going to finish third, just behind Hambone. And shout out to Winter Antics, another friend of
Yes.
this podcast and others, and BFAM as well. Um, and it looks like he's going to take it all, which is an awesome accomplishment. In PSVG, interestingly enough, and we might talk about this a little bit later when we're doing a bit of a hype check. Uh, but there was a fight this week. There's like 1 week left in the season. There was a fight to get what is the name of this game? Away from Home.
Away
Sorry,
from
this
home.
one was not on my radar. Probably should have been. And it's interesting, the Game Awards and some recent good news routes shook some stuff loose, Marcus, where games that were previously, they didn't have their release date or delayed date registered, uh, did. And now people that did not have a drop available all of a sudden did and were able to start making a move this late into the season. And both a couple people from that league, including Hambone, both going after this game Away from Home to
Okay.
try and shore up their position. So the person in fourth, that's behind me by about 10 points, took that game. So I will be monitoring that.
Oh.
So I could end up in fourth in PSVG, which would be one of my worst showings there, but we'll see. It just makes it all the more competitive next year.
Who is in first place or is going to win?
So Garrett Bland,
It is Dr. Bland.
good
Yeah.
friend and host of the RP, or one of the co-hosts of the RPG Cave over at Carpool Gaming, is leading the PSVG League handedly. Luminez Arise also helping him
Yep.
sail to victory. Um, and he is the commissioner of that league, which is always a fun when he gets the ribbing for doing so.
Yep.
But it's, he puts in a lot of work also to run that league. So power to him and congrats to him. But yeah, it's been a fun year. Regardless, I think there's been like a lot of fun narratives and a lot of like good joshing going on in all these leagues. So I've really enjoyed the engagement has just been higher. I found this year. Like I don't know if it was just more competitive, more parity, but there's been a lot more people engaged right till the end, like literally the end. So that's
Yeah.
been fun to
Yeah.
watch.
I would agree.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's interesting, like I don't know, maybe there's like the people that are still engaging with Fantasy Critic are just, that much more enthused by it. They're really locked in
Yeah.
on finishing strong, right? So why don't we talk about maybe what were some of the biggest takeaways from the year, some of the biggest surprises, the biggest misses, our own individuals, like the sleeper picks that maybe really defined the year that made the difference. I don't know if you want to kick us off. We
Sure.
can kind of chat through a couple big highlights from the year.
Yeah. Like surprises. I think we have to start with the game of the hour again, John, or the game maybe the some might say the game of the year. Expedition 33, Claire Obscura Expedition 33 is really, I think that a lot of people were looking forward to this game. I don't think, me being one of them, and a lot of people were probably expecting it to do decent in terms of Fantasy Critic, like an 80 plus sort of score. I don't think anybody was expecting, even the most fervent supporters, they were expecting it to be one of the best reviewed games of the year. I think it's at a 92, and really having the fantasy impact that it did. Like, it just came not came it didn't come out of nowhere, but it really just blew through expectations, I think, general expectations for it.
I remember not this year, but last year, like way back when it was first shown at, I don't remember whose
I think it was an Xbox showcase.
director, Sony,
Xbox,
Xbox.
yep.
Okay. It, I remember you being the person in my circle of friends that was like, "Oh my God, what is this game?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not seeing what he's seeing, but okay." And then obviously more came of it, and it became the start of the Fantasy Critic season. And I'm like, yes, everything I was reading pointed exactly what you're saying. Like, I don't know anybody that had this pegged in like first round, top 10, must pick up necessarily, or at least top five. This was going in second rounds pretty much
Yep.
across the board because people weren't sure. Like you said, like a lot of confidence, but not like the 90 plus game
Potential.
lock in high
Yeah.
80 potential that other games had. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's right to claim this as like a big surprise on the year.
Yeah. I guess the second one that, I think was, if we're talking surprises, Nintendo's Switch 2 coming out, and it being kind of, maybe, like, in retrospect, when you look at things through our like 2020 hindsight, there were some clues, but definitely the prevailing wisdom was that Nintendo's not going to launch a console without a 3D Mario coming out in the same year. And for it to be Donkey Kong Bonanza as being kind of that stepping into that role of the 3D Mario, I think that was a big surprise. Like, we know, I think, oh geez, we had a question. Maybe it was John from Gaming in the Wild.
Yeah.
He had
Yeah.
written in and that he had bet on it and had drafted Donkey Kong Bonanza because he was expecting it to be a launch title. But John's like the only one. Like, this was not a
Yeah,
common.
there's like there are very few people. That's like, and that is like to bank your fantasy critics season on that when someone can actually counter it is near crazy.
Yeah,
Like at that point in time, I got to agree. When when it happened, it wasn't shocking, but it is surprising when you're looking at fantasy critic because I think everything makes sense about it. Obviously, the game was a hit. Um, but at the time, I agree. It's like there's no one that was like, let's do this over Mario. And it's just another, yeah, big surprise on the year that ended up shaping things. Because what ended up happening was everybody that had picked up, 3D platformer, Mario 3D platformer, were really screwed.
yeah.
It probably cost them their
It
season.
was
And it
basically a
created this,
first round pick in
yeah,
every league that I played in. 3D Mario
yeah.
platformer. Yeah.
And it created a bidding war for Donkey Kong,
Yep.
which helped propel others forward, right? It definitely made my part of my year, right? Where I was successful. I banked half of my budget on it and was successful and it paid off. But it really changed the landscape. Like that one thing changed the landscape of the season in really significant ways. So yeah, those are the unexpected things that you can't really always predict mid-season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What else?
I got one more that was just like this kind of magical moment, John. It was, we had, talked so much about Silk Song, and, is it coming out? I was very skeptical. I was like, I'll believe it when I see it. We end up getting a date. It comes out. The reviews start to trickle in. And for this brief moment, John, it was sitting at 100 on OpenCritic. It was crazy. I don't know if you had this didn't last long. It was maybe a few hours or something, but I don't know if you happened to log on in that during that magical moment when you were to see Silk Song 100. It was wild. It was crazy.
No.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, it was as someone with Silksong on their team,
Yeah.
I was cheering it on
Yeah.
and hoping to all hell that it held on.
Yeah.
Truthfully, that probably if that had held, it would have probably propelled me to first in that league. Obviously, it was not going to hold
Right.
in the league I had it in. It was not going to hold.
Yeah.
That was unlikely then. It was, even more unlikely now. But uh, I remember those first few hours. It stayed there for a little bit
Yeah.
too, which was the scariest part. Like there were a number of reviews already in, and it was still at 100. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. I guess the one thing is that if it's finally out, the Silk Song Spectre over Fantasy Critic and all the directs and everything can finally be put to rest, so we don't have to worry about that right now. But uh, yeah, what a moment over the year.
It was so like again, it's just like seeing logging on to Open Critic and seeing any game because to our knowledge, I mean, maybe it has happened in the past, but at least in kind of like the Fantasy Critic era, I don't think it has. And to see it 100, so 40 points
Yeah,
for a game, very cool. And again,
yeah.
like I
I'll
was
throw.
down on the game too. Like I was down in the sense that I was thinking that it would be difficult for it to live up to expectations. I think maybe the narrative, maybe that's where the narrative is. But in terms of fantasy critic, um, I think that it certainly performed as good as people could have reasonably expected it to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It delivered on the promise. Yeah. I'll throw one out at you, which is going to sound weird as a surprise. Mario Kart World sitting
Okay.
at an 88. I don't think I don't think it's a bad score, and it's not a surprise that it came out. I think we all kind of had our expectations. I think most places I was like, I think a lot of people were taking it first round. I think the 88 and the narrative around the game is probably more the surprise. I think people that had it, I remember when it first came out, it was dropping down to like 86, 87. Now it's kind of settled around an 88. I remember people were pissed.
Mm.
Like assuming this was like an automatic 90 plus, given how Mario Kart 8 Deluxe had done. And I don't know. It's uh, you know, maybe that's just a result of expectation setting and people's expectations were too high. I'd be happy with an 88, but I do think there are some that thought it was a little lower and the overall narrative of the game um, kind of coming in south of where people had predicted for sure.
Yeah, like I was fairly confident that a Mario Kart game is going to be 90 plus. Fairly confident.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And then the other one that I was actually pretty surprised by, especially having played it now, is South of Midnight.
mm,
I think we were kind of mixed, you and I, when we talked about South of Midnight, and like again, this is a hard one to label as a surprise, given I think we talked about compulsion games and their history and like the scores of their other
yeah,
games. But 77 seems low, and it's lower than where a lot of people had placed it. It was going pretty high in most drafts that I was in,
yeah,
and after having played it, it won uh, at Game Awards. It won, I think, um, Impact,
yeah.
the
Games
Impact
for
Award,
Impact. Yeah,
just in terms of what it can do. And there's some really interesting things that it was doing. And yeah, I thought critics might reward it for some of those things, the cultural pieces, the musical pieces, it wasn't breaking any barriers when it came to its gaming mechanics and its combat. But I think still a little bit surprised that it landed so low given all the narrative around that game.
it feels like to me it's probably about 5 points lower than I would have probably
Yeah,
expected it to be. Even having played it, expected it to be. It's
yeah,
it's got some flaws. I think like you mentioned the combat can be a bit repetitive and there's not a ton of enemy variety and stuff like that. But the narrative is really great. The animation is fantastic. The art style, the music, of course. So yeah, it does have a
yeah,
lot going for it. Perhaps this is just showing a good trajectory for Compulsion. Maybe the next game
yeah,
kind of is able to keep this upward trend going.
yeah, yeah. Okay, what about your misses on the year? What were some of your misses?
So I mean, it's funny to look back on some of these things. So either these are like real personal misses. So where I thought they were going to land relative to where they actually did. And I think like the discussion has to start with Civ 7. I was so high on Civ 7, John. Like, I think I didn't have the opportunity to draft first in any league, but if I did, that might have been my first overall pick.
Yeah.
And it's sitting today at a 79. That's real disappointing, given the kind of the pedigree of Civ games. And yeah, so I that was a total whiff on my behalf, because again, like 79 isn't going to kill your season, but with a first round pick, which is where everybody's drafting, that pretty fairly high first round
Yeah.
pick pretty consistently, that's not, you want something scoring a little bit higher than that. So that was a pretty
Yeah, it's
big,
not saying you up for success.
no,
Like
not
you're
at
not
all.
going to be feeling great about
No,
that.
no. Kind of on the other way around, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, really,
Yeah.
I think that one actually was the game that I missed by the most in terms of what I predicted its score to be to where to where it actually was. I think it's at an 89 right now. I think I predicted 75 ish. Like, I did not see this coming. The phenomenon that it was, it really, I would say, defined those first 2 months of the fantasy season. Like, that was the big game, and it was we're a fair distance away from when it released. So I think, like, the narrative had died down, but you start to, around Game Awards time, kind of people talking about how good Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was.
Yeah.
And so yeah, wasn't expecting that one. And then I've got two more.
Well, on your Kingdom Come Deliverance too, I'll say like I had thought about like, well, should be one of the surprises really, but if you think back to like the draft,
Yeah.
like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, at least for me, like when we were drafting, it was in the top two rounds kind of as one of the things. And truthfully, it was based, I think, on how the first one had done that I didn't target it. Like it
Yep.
didn't look like it was going to be anything special, just maybe too much risk. But other people had done their homework. So I think you're right. I think it's not just a miss for you, it's a miss for me as well, because this is another one where it was like an act. I was like almost actively avoiding it.
Mm,
Like I wasn't wanting to take it over other things. And obviously we know the story now. Hitting an 89, that was a mistake, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah. So my last two are, be a little quicker on these. Final Fantasy Tactics remaster, remake. I can't remember what it ended up settling in as, but I was very worried about this game. You were quite high on it, and I think I
I was high on it. Yeah,
talked you away from it a little bit.
a little bit. Yeah.
And it performed like one of the best kind of RPG tactics games of all time. It's sitting at an 88, and I didn't have a good feeling about it, and obviously I missed on that. And then the other one is Dispatch. I
Hmm.
I think it was the episode with Sean that I said, this feels like, it just looks like a mid 70s game to me. It looks like it written
So
all over
damn.
it. Yeah, and I don't know what it is, 87, 88, somewhere in that neighborhood.
87.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dispatch. I mean, the thing with Dispatch for me was I was actually pretty high on it. I've been pretty high on it all year, the same way I am pretty high on Mixtape as well. Similar idea. Um, Especially with the pedigree of the actors that were kind of involved in the project. To me, it was more. I didn't. I thought the range for Dispatch, to your point, was much higher. Like
Mm,
mid 70s to mid 80s, and you're really stretching to get like an 84 and 85. The fact that it got it to 87 relatively handedly, um like that's the miss to me. Like obviously I think I had a chance to get it and passed for something else. I don't remember what, early in the season. And so that's like really, it's just not calculating it as or giving it enough weight. But what are you going to do? You're
yep.
not going to win them all.
Yep.
The only one I wanted to call out as a miss was it's a bit of an odd one, but Monster Train 2. I think this game, the first one had done relatively well, I think like an 83. Um, and this is one that we had talked about as potentially even like where there's some pickup value off the
Hmm.
waiver wire. And it just kind of blew past. I think it landed like in the high 80s, if I'm not mistaken, like 87 or
I
88 in
think
terms of
so.
where it
Yep.
settled. And so, I just feel bad having talked about it. It was like it was out there sitting to be picked up and just didn't do it. So for me, that's one for sure. Um, then there's that whole other category of sleepers. Things that I think really defined the season and helped. bring people or propel them to victory or high positions anyway. Not victory. So why don't you go through some of yours there, Marcus?
Yeah, like I think it's almost impossible for like a AAA kind of bigger budget game to be a sleeper because they're just so well known, right? They're not coming
Yeah.
out of nowhere. So like I really think that um, it was the lower profile or like not lower profile kind of sounds a little derogatory. I don't mean it by like that, but like indie developers that don't have like this stable of high performing games already established, or even just like one big game like a yacht club, having really Shovel Knight, although there's lots of expansions and stuff, but there's an expectation they have that pedigree that we talk about. But it's the ones that didn't, I think, that really kind of snuck up on me, frankly. I mean, I only heard about these through popping my head in. I haven't been nearly as active in the Fantasy Critic Discord, but kind of popping in and seeing what games are being talked about, and things like Blueprints, which I had admittedly targeted that one
Yeah.
fairly early, but like the Seance of Blake Manor and Pipistrello, which I've just recently played and really really loved. Keep Driving, which came out very early in the year. I know that um, our friend Silcanet had picked it up in a couple of the leagues that I play in, and I hadn't heard of it until he picked it up, and then I saw it,
Yeah.
scoring. I think it's at an 89. I've also played that one, and it's fantastic. So those are the games that really kind of, I think, those are the games that will win you your league. Everybody's going to be able to be in on the AAA stuff, even the bigger indies. Those are not um, secrets anymore. I think,
Yeah.
um, and like the Silk Songs and the Hades and the these bigger, the Mean and the Hollowers, they're not unknown at this point, and so you have to be able to at least try to find these real gems, these hidden gem kind of games, and I think like those are the ones that ended up being sleepers and kind of really propelling people. You don't have to have them all, but just if
Yeah.
you're able to kind of get one or a few of them on your team, it really gives you a big leg up, and it can they kind of come out of nowhere, like, or they feels like they come out of nowhere, and they can
Yeah.
really help you win your league.
Yeah, I think another one in that kind of same vein is probably Absalom. We
Absolutely.
had talked about
Yep.
Absalom,
Uh,
a little bit of doubt there, but that, it ended up solidly landing, I think, in the mid 80s
yep.
and late in the year, right? Was another huge
Yep.
kind of pull for people late in the year. One that didn't quite land that we thought was going to be a sleeper was Consumi. We thought
Right.
Consumi had all the pedigree and all the right pieces to kind of pull it. It still landed in the low 80s, but it just didn't like change the game for those that kind of were really banking on it. And then another indie that not so much sleeper, but I think is one that we weren't sure exactly like would it live up to the pedigree was Sword of the Sea.
Yep.
I think Sword of the Sea ended up at what, like 86 or 87.
Yeah. I think it's 87. Yeah.
Another great one. It was out there waiting. I know a lot of people were banking on it, kind of came through. So really like some of these are the stories that really I think change the nature of the year for sure. We reached out to Blue Sky, to everyone following Hype Factor on Blue Sky, and asked what their surprises were for the year. We got a couple of responses back. Starting off with good friend Nagachaka. He said, I was surprised with Claire 33. He drafted it last year. Wait, not drafted, counterpicked it
Yes.
and lost 24 points in that single move, basically tanking his season. So he was surprised by that. And to Marcus's earlier point, there weren't a lot of people that necessarily were 100% on this game. Other good friend of ours, Matt Sawinski, from Console Creatures, chimed in to let Nagachaka know that Court Lond also counterpicked
Yeah. Court
Claire.
catching strays
Claire.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, just like not even in the
Yep.
conversation, and poor guys just getting hit.
Yeah.
But we love those guys, so
Mhm.
thank you for weighing in. That's a really funny conversation. It's true. Some people you didn't even talk about counterpicks. You counterpicked something like Expedition 33, and you're basically done the season before it even got started last
Yeah.
year. So that's funny.
Yeah. For sure.
Um, another write in from John Gaming in the Wild. He said he learned not to trust publishers and pedigree if his gut isn't feeling the game. He lists a couple here. Rematch, Shadow Labyrinth, Skin Deep cost him a lot in his league, whereas gut picks like Lost and Random, Eternal Die, Hurdling, Sword of the Sea all got over 10 points.
Yeah.
It's a good point. There's a lot of good games there too. Yeah. I mean, sometimes that's the art of this thing, right? You can do all the science and all the math you want, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's really just about trying to avoid the pitfalls of the bad moves and go with your gut where it makes the most sense. So the last thing I wanted to do, like on this part of the topic of the month, Marcus, was just how off were we in terms of our predictions from last year? So some of them we already covered, but this will be fun. This is always like embarrassing. But why don't we? Do you want to go first? Maybe I'll go first.
Sure.
Actually, no, you go
I'll go
first.
first. So
You
you want to
go
talk?
first.
So we at on our draft preview for 2025, we did.
Yes, episode 2 of Hype Factor.
That's right.
If you go back in the books, everybody they
Yeah,
can listen to them on. Yeah,
you can go
there's
check what we're saying is accurate. We haven't tried to fudge anything here. So we had come up with a list of 3 games for several categories. The first category was our locks of the year. And then our second category was boom or bust picks. So picks that could have a high variance. Third was, I don't have it in front of me here, sleepers, right? So
yeah,
things that were
sleepers.
maybe flying under the radar that we thought could outperform where people were potentially drafting them, if they were drafting them at all. And was there a fourth category? Oh,
Yeah, the
games to
avoids.
avoid. Right, games to avoid. Okay, so my locks this year, we talked about one of them last episode. Metroid Prime 4 was one of my locks. Civ 7, which I've already kind of alluded to, was a lock, and Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza. And I didn't do so good here, John. I mean, none of these games are
No,
going to sink your season, but none of these games, I think, in retrospect, would have been locks. Like Prime 4 is at 81, Pirate Yakuza is 81, and Civ 7 is 79. So not a great record there for me on my locks.
I mean, to be fair, I liked your locks better than my locks.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you want me to go
sure.
next?
Yeah,
Yeah.
why don't you talk about
Okay,
yours?
so sure. So my locks were Monster Hunter Wilds. Uh, then I had Ghost of Yote, and lastly Avowed. And so, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
2 out of 3 ain't
I'll
bad.
take it.
Yeah.
Even Yote at 87 outperformed the first one. Monster Hunter Wilds is at an 89. It's the only one that I think landed in the range that kind of we hoped for it. Avowed at an 80. Um, I thought it would do a bit better, but yeah, not too shabby. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Why don't you lead us off with the boomer
Boomer
busts there,
bust. I
Marcus?
think this is where I really excelled, John. I
Yeah.
picked games that were either, again, high variance. They're either going to do really poorly or really really well. And so
Yes.
my boomer busts were GTA 6, which didn't come out, so got a 0. So that kind of fits
That's a
that.
bust.
That's a
Yeah.
bust. And Silk Song and Expedition 33, which both scored
Yeah.
over 90. So that kind of
I mean, so it was on your radar to really to do it, right? Like I think that's one of the reasons you avoided it was the range that Clair
yes,
Obscur really had.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it was Doom the Dark Ages, um, Marvel Rise of Hydra, and then South of Midnight. Again, not the worst. I think that all 3 of those kind of reflect the same kind of thing. Obviously, Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra was delayed. Doom the Dark Ages at an 86, I think, lived up to what we hoped for it. And then South of Midnight, as kind of predicted, was a bit of a bust. Um, Maybe I'll lead us off the next category,
sure.
which was sleepers. Um, oh, interesting. I forgot I had said this on that first episode. So the first one was Earthblade,
Yep,
which everybody knowing the story of Earthblade, we didn't even talk about that as one of the stories. This, obviously from the same developers from that were supposed to be the same developers from Celeste. Just the game got canceled, not even coming out, not even
hmm,
delayed, just not happening anymore. Tales of Iron 2, which we thought would probably uh, be a lift for people's teams looking at an indie like that after the first one that we both played and loved. Only scored an 80,
Yep.
so slightly lower than hoping. And then Dispatch was
Yes.
my third one,
Yeah.
which I had forgotten that I had said this.
Yeah. I saw it on the show
At the
notes actually.
time,
Yeah. Yeah. Ahead of time. Yeah.
yeah, at the time there was no date. It was just a 2025, and it ended up being an 87. So
Mhm.
I wish I had listened to my own advice back then.
That's right. My sleepers that I had said were Citizen Sleeper 2
Very good.
and 2 Point Museum, both pretty good sleeper picks, 87 and
Very
an
good.
85. And then Atelier Yumiya,
Yeah.
that one a little bit disappointing, sitting at a 79. So again, not it didn't wreck your season, but it's probably looking for a little more out of that one.
And when you look at Citizen Sleeper 2, honestly, like going back in time, if you could tell yourself, like, this is the game to value over those locks, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we were putting so much weight on those big AAA
Civ 7.
titles. And yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway. And lastly, the avoids. Do you want to kick us off?
sure. So I did again 2 out of 3, I would say, on this one. So Assassin's Creed Shadows. I was quite vocal about my reluctance, or basically like, do not pick up Assassin. I don't want to deal with the
Mm,
headache. And I think like as we approached it, it ended up getting I think a month delay, which is probably a good thing in terms of like the polish of the game, and it ended up settling in at an 81. So the people that did end up taking a risk on it and disregarding my advice to avoid it did okay. The other two that I said to avoid were Atomfall, which I think bared out. Ended up with a 75. And then the other one was Replaced, which is,
nice.
recently resurfaced with some news just, I don't know, within the last couple of weeks that it has a date. Does it actually have a date, or is it just a
March.
window?
It does,
Oh, a
March
date.
12th.
Yeah, March 12th. Okay. So,
I think
yeah,
that's what the summary's telling me here. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe it'll be on my avoid for next year, because again, I'm interested in this game, but it's hard to be confident that it's going to score well.
It's going to be on my boomer bust.
Yeah, yeah, maybe that's where it fits better. Yeah.
All right. Well, mine were a bit of a cop out, but yeah, they were correct. So
Yep.
now looking at my list, I'm like, yeah. Although I was right on Fable. So the three I had were Haunted Chocolatier, Intergalactic, and then Fable. Haunted Chocolatier was delayed. That was based on a blog post at the end of December from last year. Intergalactic, I don't think anybody thought it was coming out, but I did see it get picked up in a bunch of leagues, so glad I was right about that. And the last one was Fable. Like looking at my thinking back then, um, yeah, there was no date at the time, unclear timeline, some mixed questions around the history, and it was just kind of one of those just stay away from it. And that was turned out to be a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Although we'll see what we say about it for 2026, when there's probably a better chance of it coming out. One of the things we wanted to talk about is also the outcomes of our pixel prognostication segment, which we won't be doing today or the next episode, but we've been keeping score,
We
and we
have been keeping
promised
score.
everybody we're going to report out.
Hmm.
Well, how do you want to do this, Marcus? We've been doing some tallying. We got
Well,
some interesting
I know you
results.
had done kind of just the
Okay,
overall. You go through that, and
all
then
right.
I'll do the deeper dive.
Okay,
Yeah.
so surprising me more than anybody listening, somehow I ended up winning this this
Yeah.
competition because I thought I was losing pretty badly midway through the year. I think maybe you have an updated number, but I think I counted 36 to 30. Um, we also calculated our guests' score. We're happy to report that we beat them handedly. Each guest that we had, so we had four guests in total, each of them got one correct
Mm.
of the list that we did with them here. So they all scored a total of one each, totaling four, and we beat them handedly. I
Yep.
was proud of that.
Yep.
And then we had about six ties, if unless there still could be some variations there, but in instances where we were both equal distant from whatever the actual game score was. So why don't you take it away, Marcus? You said you did some deeper dive here. What else did you learn?
I did. So like obviously John has kind of taken a like head to head, or or if there was three of us, like who was the closest of the three, and who won that pick. But what I was really curious to find out was like how good are either of us and our guests. I lumped all the guests into one. Presume our guests are just a third person, but I was curious like how close we were, like in overall, on average, like if I say a game is going to get an 85, what's the, how close am I typically to what its actual score is? So um, I took an average of like how far off I was of each of my predictions. And I did the same for John. And it turns out this pattern that John found out, it holds. John is a little bit better at predicting games scores than me. So on average, John was 4.25 points off of the actual score with his pick. So 4.25, I was 4.45. So not a ton off, but a little bit off of his. And our guests were 4.63. So that made me feel a little bit better. At least I'm doing better than the guests. We do this thing as a podcast. These guys are just coming on to, chat with us. So I feel a little bit better that I at least beat the guests.
Well, they all take it very seriously, though, I gotta say. So I mean,
Yeah. So yeah, and then the other thing I was kind of curious is like how many games did each of us nail exactly? John, again, won out on this. So John got 6 games over the course of the year. He picked the exact correct score. I did it 3 times. And then the other thing that I wanted to just point out is like, how bad can we get? Like, our worst
oh yeah,
picks, like how bad does it get? And like, so I took a look at how many times over the course of the year, each of us was at least 10 points wrong with our guess.
yeah,
And John was 10 points or worse wrong 6 times, and I was 10 points or wrong 7. So again, he beat me on that one.
okay.
But the one thing that I beat John on is John had the worst single prediction.
It
And
sank my season, Marcus. It sank my season.
the
This is
one
why you actually won 2 leagues, and I'm still.
so he picked uh he predicted FBC Firebreak to get an 84, and it ended up settling in at a 64. So he was off by 20 points on that one.
20 points.
Yeah. So
God
that was
damn
the that
that
was the
game.
worst prediction that we between the two of us that was made all year. So yeah.
I'm gonna tank that control pick next episode.
Yeah.
You'll see.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get my revenge on Remedy with that show.
So I don't know. It was
No,
kind of
that's
interesting.
fun
I
though.
was really I
It
was
is
really keen
interesting.
to see how, just in general, like if people are listening to us, like how obviously we're not going to be bang on with any of it, but how far
No,
off are we?
yeah,
And to be honest, within 5 points on average, that's not bad.
yeah, it's not too
It's
bad.
not bad.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get better next year. I don't know,
Yes,
or if we get worse.
yeah,
Right, it's
we'll
possible.
see. Yeah,
Yeah. So with all that said, and some interesting takeaways from everything we've gone through, why don't we talk a little bit about what we learned on this season? I mean, we started this podcast a year ago. First few episodes were really about helping to inform people, and we've done a couple episodes along the way that are really trying to help uh, people with their draft, people with their pickups, people not to make mistakes. What are some of the big lessons learned? Things that you might want to suggest as takeaways from this year?
I think like the probably upon reflection, the biggest thing that I learned was how to shift my view of indie games. And it was really because of something that our guest, Kyle Stevenson, said at the time. Because we asked him, how do you choose indie games that you want to add to your fantasy team? Because to that point, we had always really stressed pedigree of the developer, the indie developer. What sort of history did they have? And Kyle said that's important, but for him, he likes to look at whether or not the game is doing anything new or interesting or something that is really appealing to him. And it was kind of like flip the switch for me, because I was like, I think that's actually the better approach to take. We have lots of examples of indie developers who might switch genres or maybe do kind of move into something that's a little bit different than their kind of like previous big success, high scoring game. And it doesn't do quite as well because maybe it didn't, I don't know, it wasn't doing anything particularly unique like it did in that first game that scored well. And like I think that is kind of what I've learned, and maybe the biggest takeaway that I've had, because again, as we've talked a little bit about already in today, is how important those under the radar indie games are to your success in a fantasy season. So it's not easy to identify these games, but it really is key to try to go and try to maybe not be too afraid to take risks with games that are coming from devs that you might not know anything about if the game looks really interesting and it's doing something really cool.
No one's gonna. One of the games that we didn't talk about earlier, probably should have, and we could talk about it now, is a game like Ball Pit.
Yes.
Right, Ball Pit, another Devolver game. We're like
Yep.
not even knowing where to place it. But if you use that equation in terms of what the hell it's doing and what it's doing different,
It's a great
it
example.
should have been a lock.
Yep.
Right? It should have been a lock. Not only did it have the pedigree from the dev, but it had something completely unique. Um, and some people went for it, some people didn't, because
Yep.
nobody knew how reviewers were going to take to it. But that's a very good example. And those are the types of swings you probably need to take in order to win. Because with anybody's team, you're not going to have all AAA games, and if you do, you're probably not going to win because they're not going to all be bangers, right? Everybody's
Yes.
competing for those same ones that everybody knows. So to do something different, I think it's also appropriate that we're talking about this, and we're big fans of indie games. We use them now to also help win fantasy critic leagues, but it's also coming on the heels of what for those that watched the Game Awards, it was acknowledged by Jeff Keighley, it was acknowledged by others that 3 of the 6 top games of the years were indie games,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right now they're bigger titles, right? You have your Silk Song and your Hades, and then you have Clear Obscure, right? But it's still to say that the landscape has changed, right? And it's also changed here. And things you kind of have to make sure you're bracing for that because it's going to be needed going forward. So that is a huge, huge lesson learned. I appreciate that. And that was great insight by Kyle when we had him talking about that. So, yeah, a good one.
I think one of the things that I
Um,
was just to kind of maybe wrap up the indie point here is I know that something we were quite concerned about early in the year when we did our indie focused episode was whether or not some indie games, particularly ones that don't come with a dev track record, are they going to get enough reviews? And I
yeah,
think that that is maybe less of a concern than it should be today. These games, it's not that, some very small indies don't get enough reviews, but like there are ample games that get plenty of reviews to get scores. And I think I'll probably be less worried about that particularly concern moving forward, whether or not it's going to get enough reviews. So,
yeah. And part of that is truthfully, I mean, I'm not a whiz in terms of the business side of things, but I got to assume that a lot of that is um, where the industry is going and where the gaming media is going to follow, right? So if things are trending in the direction that indie games are taking up more airtime, they're taking up more people time, they're taking up more dollar resources, that's where the media will follow and put more resource towards, which hopefully will mean more reviewers,
yep.
right? Because people always have to divide their time. I don't think that means the AAA are going to, like, they're obviously going to always get more attention, but hopefully, to your point, the concern around number of reviews starts to diminish over time.
Yeah.
I think we can hope that. Also, Open Critic, hey, they can also make more top critics that are doing a job out there. I know I've been biased the whole year wanting Star of Providence to get that third review, but
Yeah.
there's lots of reviewing outlets that focus or specialize on indie titles rather than big AAA titles that have their own pedigree, um, that probably should be considered for top critic categorization rather than outlets that nobody really even knows who they are or where they're coming from, right? So that's another element to this is, those that are doing the aggregate scoring can also kind of help things along, and maybe they'll see that for what it is, right? And they'll see the writing on the wall in terms of where things are going with indies. Um, other lessons you wanted to flag? I mean, I can think of some based on that FPC Firebreak piece, but the general avoid of the multiplayer genre
Mm-hmm.
besides Battlefield 6 and Arc Raiders. I mean, I take the point, but there's going to be a lot of new ones in 2026, and I think avoiding those might be your better bet, just because you don't know where they're gonna land.
Yeah. I mean, My feelings are pretty clear. We talked about both Battlefield and Arc Raiders being games to potentially be able to buck that trend. Like we
Hmm.
were, as high on those as we had been on multiplayer games all year, but I still was not comfortable because I feel like there's just so much more that can go wrong. And like
Yeah,
I feel like I had that feeling more or less going into the season, and I feel like it was basically validated. It doesn't mean multiplayer
yeah,
games can't score well, just most of them don't, or at least not well
yeah,
enough to be on your fantasy roster.
yeah, yeah. What about um, what about DLC, Marcus? Do you
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about DLC?
Well, DLC was a much more of an eye opener for sure this year. Doing that deep dive that we did, what was it, our September or August episode? Like it it really opened my eyes, and part of it was because we were feeling it in our carpool league. We had set it up so that we had to have a DLC game on everybody's roster, right? So we had to make sure that we were having it. But I had always kind of looked at DLC as almost like a sequel kind of potential for a game. And I just kind of had this idea in my head that DLC scores very roughly what the main game scores. This is not, the numbers do not bear this
No.
out. And I know that you had Indiana Jones DLC, which scored quite low 70s. The base
Yep.
game
Low
was
70s.
87. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I had the Chained Echoes DLC, which ended up being okay.
As did I.
Um,
Well, not when you're blanking on getting an 85. Like
exactly, and
that's
it's
yeah,
so it ended, I think it was a 78 that it settled in at,
yeah,
but it started in the high 60s. It was very scary
yeah,
for a little bit, and and again, there are these outliers like Sea of Stars. I think it scored almost basically what the base game did, but those are very much outliers. Maybe even more so than how much of an outlier like our Arc Raiders and Battlefield 6 were in the multiplayer
yeah,
genre. Like it is a very rare occurrence. Like you're talking, I don't remember what the percentages are, but probably like 10 to 20% of DLCs score within a couple of points of the main game. Like most of them are much lower. And so yeah, if you don't have to ever add a DLC, that I don't think I ever will again. Yeah,
Oh, I'll be tempted. Wait for that Silk Song DLC to come out. I'm
yeah.
joking.
Well, there's the
Uh,
one. I think I had said the one I still might actually add is the Cult of the Lamb one. That one feels like
yeah,
that's safer, but
yeah,
maybe it's just wishful
yeah.
thinking. I don't know.
I think there's a Yote DLC coming, so
We're
the
talking
temptation
ourselves
will
in.
be real.
Yeah, yeah. A few of them.
Well, the only other one I had was based on our conversation last episode, where this idea that the zeitgeist around reviews might be changing, may be another thing that we need to start looking at. Not so much a lesson learned from last year, but to look ahead to next year is really like how the heck, if the incorporation of AI into different things is going to start changing how people are perceiving it or scoring it, that's going to be a real consideration going forward. So that's another one for me that I'm not entirely sure yet how we're going to manage. I'm sure our pixel prognostication variable might increase if we're
Yeah,
not careful. So
yeah.
yeah,
It's one of those things. I still like. I've thought about that since our conversation last episode, and I still don't really know what to do with it. I feel like
yeah,
the AI conversation, it will continue to be there, but I don't know like what we're supposed to do about it because
yeah,
you chances are you're not going to know about these things ahead of time. So like, how
yeah,
do you kind of like how do you plan for it? Like you could always kind of things could come out of nowhere, but by the time you actually find out, it's probably too late because the reviews are already
yeah,
dropping and stuff. So I
yeah.
don't know.
We'll have to see. Well, what a year it's been. I mean, that's a great wrap up, in my opinion, just looking back at everything that was and everything that has informed our seasons. It's been an awesome time.
It really has.
And
Yeah.
2025 was a great year for games generally. Like, I remember last year, it felt like there was like much more variation between like the uh, really high scoring games and the low scoring games. And this year, it feels like there's been a lot more, I don't know, kind of centralization, but there's been a lot of good games across the board throughout the year. So too many to play. too many to pick up in Fantasy Critic. And yeah, any other thoughts before we move on to the
No,
news?
it's been a lot of fun. Obviously, we're continuing this thing. It's not like we're saying goodbye, but it's been a lot of fun kind of going through the 2025 season with you, John, and being able to look at Fantasy Critic through the lens that we have this year by doing the show. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. On to 2026.
Yep.
Let's get into the news.
Couple minor news updates. We're not going to spend too long here because we do have an episode, as we mentioned, focused on the 2026 draft season, which will come out soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks from when you're hearing this. So it'll be a small gap in time where we'll break down the options available for you for 2026. We'll go through their booms or busts and all the different variables, and we'll see how right we are this time around. But for now, we'll just give you a couple updates. So one, if you're listening now, the Fantasy Critic Discord did put out their notice that the drafts are open. So if you are a group that looks to draft during the holiday season or in late December, it is open. So make sure you're keeping up with the Fantasy Critic website. And then the only other big piece of news was that the Game Awards happened. And
Yes.
as usual at the Game Awards, there were a lot of announcements. So, Marcus, I've put some notes down here that really focus on those games that were shown that had a 2026 beside it, to which, again, we'll break it down further when we get into the draft. But I thought, we could quickly comment on some of these as some of them were pretty interesting. Um, First one was Pragmata. We'd seen this already,
Yep.
but it did get an April date, which is interesting. I don't know if you have any further thoughts on Pragmata versus what we had seen earlier in the year.
Well, full disclosure, I have not had a chance to fully watch the Game Awards yet. So I do intend to get back to it. I missed the section where we did see Pragmata, but I am interested in this game. I don't know. Maybe you can kind of give me what they showed and whether or not this increased your, I don't know, increased your interest in it.
The only thing that I would say was net new, I'm sure I'm getting this wrong. I'm sure others with much more critical eye saw 10 more things than me, but the thing that was net new was there was like mid combat sequence.
Hmm,
Did you play Near Automata?
I have.
This is a bad example,
Okay.
but mid combat sequence, you'd basically have to solve a slight puzzle
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
type
yeah, yeah,
thing in
yeah.
order to progress and it was tough to say if that was like a live action battle sequence between the characters and an enemy or if it was like almost like a quick time event. But there was this like one moment where they show this little puzzling action, and I know that for some people that kind of has turned them off slightly. I'm still intrigued by this game. Truthfully, I'm going to probably go back and rewatch it before I figure out where I'm going to put this thing on the list and do a little bit more research, but I'm still interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I know, I feel like this game could do well. I feel like it probably has a decent floor. But I just don't know
Yeah.
how big a ceiling, like how high that ceiling might be. So I think that's what I'm kind
Yeah.
of trying to figure out.
Yeah. It's a fair starting point. Yeah. Order of the Sinking Star just had a 2026 beside it. To me, if I'm correct about this, this will look like a puzzling game. I think it's from the same creators as Braid.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
more
Yep.
yeah. So that's
Jonathan
why I
Blow.
wrote
Yeah.
it down.
Okay.
But the puzzling didn't look that interesting to me. But then again, it's not really a me game. So that's one that we'll have to take a bit of a critical look at. But again, no date, just a 2026. Next up was another arcade style racing game called Screamer. Not nothing standing out necessarily, except maybe some like anime visuals that were kind of cool. This had a March 2026 date. Again, I don't know where to place this yet, but definitely needs a little bit more research. Could be something, but that was an interesting one. And then the one maybe we'll pause on briefly was the next entry into the Control series,
Yes.
Control Resonant,
Yep.
with no date, just 2026. But I think they have a history of hitting on the dates. That I got to go back and check that.
I
That'll be
I think
something I look at
I
for
think
next
Remedy's pretty
episode.
good. Yeah. So I feel
Yeah.
like they've got more than one team at Remedy,
Hmm.
right? And it's not just, the FBC Firebreak team and the Alan Wake. Like I don't presumably
Yeah.
like Alan Wake 2 came out in 2023, and I think they tend to release games at a decent clip. So I could
I
see
agree. Yep.
2026 being a reasonable time frame. The original Control was what, 2018?
I
No,
don't even know. I played it years
2020.
after it came out. So
Yeah,
yeah, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's been a while. Um, so yeah, I feel like it certainly could hit, and if it does, it might be the I'm just trying to kind of maybe coach my words a
yeah.
little bit. Like it could be the top fantasy performing game in 2026 that was announced at the Game Awards. It could be.
Interesting.
It'd be close.
Yeah, you might be right. And I'm looking at this list again.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
yeah, I'm looking
yeah,
through the list here, and maybe
yeah,
Requiem. Requiem is probably, I don't know if you want to go get into that as well right now, but like
yeah. We can.
yeah,
I
like
wasn't gonna. We've talked about it so much, but
yeah,
let's talk about it. Yeah, they showed more of it.
yeah,
It still looks great. They confirmed that Leon's in it, which is like the big worst kept secret ever, but
right.
nice to see it confirmed. Interesting idea. Love the idea of like the two play styles in the one game, which will be, I think, great. Or you know, not to make a Top Chef reference here on this Fantasy Critic podcast, but on Top Chef, they always say that the more elements you put on a plate, the better each fucking element better be, or else you can get docked for the whole thing. So, similarly, the idea of two play styles in the same game sounds amazing. I'm here for it as a player. But, if you don't deliver on both, I think there's a little bit of risk there, but it's Resident Evil. I feel like they can.
Mhm.
Like I feel like they can do both. All right. Like
Yeah.
we've seen them do both before. So
And I don't remember what like RE8 and 7 scored, but I think both are 80 plus, 80,
I believe
mid
so.
80 ish even. So I don't, I have a hard time seeing that this would be that much different than that. So like, if you're
Yeah.
looking
And
at
then
a mid
you
80s,
add Leon and it's like automatic
yeah,
plus
maybe,
four
yeah,
points for
yeah.
Leon. No, I don't know yet, but that's actually going to be a really hard one to place because it actually does have a date, I believe. I think it's February, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken. So yeah,
yeah. I'm sorry we don't know
I
Nagachaka
think
off
that's
the
gonna be
top of
high
our
up there.
head, but yeah, like it,
He's going to try and draft it first overall. It's going to be great.
absolutely, yeah.
I'm gonna, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, this is an interesting one, and potential for this. Gonna break this one down. Lego Batman
Okay.
with a May 2026. This has a lot of anticipation amongst players.
Hmm.
I don't know how the Lego games typically score. They've been doing better lately, especially this year. They had Voyagers and Party,
Party.
I think, that
Yep.
were either high 70s or low 80, and this one has a lot of hype behind it. So it may not be like your top rounds, but I could see this potentially having a decent floor. Um, I don't know.
I've never played a Lego game, so maybe this is my um a
You get
bias in
tired of them
there.
pretty quickly.
Yeah. So I don't
I
know.
have all of them. I have the humble bundle.
Oh,
You should see my Steam. It's destroyed with like
okay.
16 Lego games. Yeah, it's great.
So I think I probably do have a bit of a bias. Is this doesn't really interest me. I think like this is a type of game that I would be content to let somebody else deal with. And it doesn't mean that it might not score well, but I just I don't get
Yeah.
a good enough sense, or I'm confident enough that I would want it on my team.
Let me put it this way philosophically to you. Is it a Lego game or is it a Batman game?
Right.
Because if it's a Batman game,
Yes.
maybe it changes things. But anyway, well, I think that's going to be a really tricky one to break down. But anyway, I think you're probably right to avoid, but I just don't want to like lose out on the opportunity
Mhm.
as well. So, and it has a date. Next up, the first of two Tomb Raider games. So they showed two Tomb Raider
Yes.
games. One of them is the next installment in the series, which is set for 2027. So we'll leave that aside for now. But the first one is Tomb Raider Catalyst, which is set for 2026, which is kind of like, I guess, a remake or a reboot. I don't know how they want to position it. But it looks pretty
I
cool.
think isn't Catalyst the new one? I think Catalyst is the new
They're
one. The
both.
name is of
Oh, did I get
Catalyst.
the name wrong?
I think so. And
Oh,
so
maybe I
because
did. Maybe I put the wrong name in.
that's fine.
Hold
But
on.
so the Tomb Raider, the one that's coming out in 2026, is a remake, but it's of the Legend Atlantis game. One of the
The
first.
OG.
Yes, I don't know what Legends of Atlantis, something like this. And these are games I never played. Friends played them, on PC back in the day when I was a kid, and it always sounded
Right.
really cool. Am I right? I think I was
Yes, I
actually
think Legacy
watching
of
at this point.
Atlantis. Yeah, and yeah, I think you're right. Legacy of Atlantis. Sorry, yes, Catalyst is the 2027.
Yeah,
Legacy of Atlantis is the
yeah.
2026.
I like that we're getting
With
some more Tomb Raider though. Like I like the
yeah,
fact because the gameplay of those original games was something that was just like I I love the setting. I love the idea of it. I just can't play those types of those kind of point and click puzzly stuff that they had, and I don't know they're, they don't age very well. So kind of bringing this original game, Legacy of Atlantis, is that what it's called, to more modern sensibilities. I'm personally quite interested in this. I don't know that I would be interested enough in this remake to look to add it to my fantasy team, but I am curious about it, and I'll be keeping an eye on reviews to whether or not I purchase it and play
yeah.
it. But I don't know that I would be adding it to my fantasy team.
There has been mixed reaction to the recasting and the new visual representation of Lara Croft.
Okay.
Some people really like it. Some people have had issues with it. I am not going to comment on what the issues have been
Okay.
because I don't want to contribute to the discourse until I have some proof or evidence of said
Mm,
discourse. But if that's true, then I would say it's an avoid. But we'll leave that for now as a cliffhanger for hopefully more
sure.
information in this
The
episode.
the 2027 game
Um,
though is probably
yes.
a good bet for the 2027
Yeah.
year, but you know,
Well, especially because we'll have whatever happens in 2026 as a bit of a
sure.
benchmark.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next one up was Orbitals. Again, just 2026, no date. This was like a I don't want to say, I think it was an exclusive, Switch exclusive, anime style. It's almost like co-op, split screen co-op, almost like a split fiction style game.
Mm,
Not sure what the details of the game are, but it looked interesting. Doing something potentially new, so something to keep an eye on. But again, no date. Uh, First DLC of the list here, Diablo 4's Lord of Hatred.
yep.
Talking about temptation, has it's dated for April of
Yep.
2026, and I have to go back and look at what the Diablo DLCs have been doing, but looked interesting, looked good.
I think
Uh,
I had Vessel of Hatred. That was the previous one,
Vessel of
yeah.
Hate, yeah.
Vessel of Hate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
had that, and I think it did okay,
I'll have to
but
go back and
not
look.
as good as the base game. Like it was low
Yeah.
80s or something. Yeah. So
Yeah. Next up, Galactic Racer, the second of two Star Wars games shown at the Game Awards. Again, just 2026. This is the one where someone's gonna have to hold me back from drafting this game.
okay.
Just hold me back.
Yeah.
Just don't let me do it. Just hold me back because I was very excited to see this game. It was like, first of all, the first like when you get the one. I was very excited to see the first Star Wars entry at the Game Awards, and now to get a second one, and just for it to look as cool as it did. For it to look as cool as it did, and kind of espouse those pod racing vibes, but also just be like really modern and like it looked like Star Wars racing. Anyway, but again, I don't have anything here yet to judge this thing. It's just a blanket 2026 date. Yeah,
I'm
that's
probably again that's something that I'm letting somebody
you're
else add.
scared.
Yeah.
You're scared of this one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a little scared too. This one you might have because you've seen this one before, I think. Phantom Blade Zero.
Yeah.
So the trailer was extensive and looked pretty cool, and it got dated with a September date. Not horrible. Thoughts on Phantom Blade Zero?
This is one of those games we talked about it cuz we had seen a bunch of it this year, and I think it originally was expected to come out this year.
Yeah.
And then there was an announcement that said that there was going to be an announcement about its date. And the reason I had been keeping a bit of an eye on it is I had counterpicked it in, I believe it was the Save the Game Media League. And so I'm still like, I didn't see the trailer. I kind of caught a section of the middle of the show the other night. So I didn't see this part. So I didn't see anything new. But I recall from what we'd seen of it before is that it looked like a lot of games we've seen recently, like the Lost Soul Aside and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Wo Long and Wu Chang and all of these these kinds of, although I understand that this one's not a Souls game, this is more of an action, you know,
Action.
action game.
That's the vibe I got from it. Yeah.
So I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. Let's give it some time to marinate.
Yeah.
Honestly, it looked good to me, but I was also really sick at the time while I was watching it, so maybe it was just like, a
Yeah.
fever dream or something. But um
It
yeah,
could, but I do
hard
wonder.
to
I wonder
place
about
it.
these things bleeding together because, like, all of these games that I've just mentioned, which one of them would you be have been like really happy to have had on your fantasy team? Any of them?
The ones that we all just talked about just now?
Yeah. Lost Soul
Probably
aside,
Requiem.
definitely not. Wu
Oh,
Chang,
those games.
definitely
Oh,
not.
oh, yeah, no, none of those.
Wo
No.
Long.
This one, for whatever reason, stands out, and I don't know
Okay.
why.
Okay.
Something is, yeah, I don't know if it's the Sony backing or what. I think I need to do a little bit more digging and create that 2026 list to really. This is the tough thing with draft and positioning and all that is like, what are you not taking in order to take it?
So that
And
was
so when
that
you start
opportunity
ranking it and
cost,
compare,
right? Yeah.
right? Yeah, you start comparing against other stuff is really where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was kind of my like recap of notable things for 2026. Lots of stuff for 2027. No Half-Life 3.
No Half-Life 3.
Half-Life 3 Enigma continues. I keep seeing people talk about it really high up there on their 2026 list. So that'll be again something to keep an eye on
Yeah.
for us and for everyone leading into 2026. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if there is no concrete information, I'll tell you right now, that would be an avoid for me on my. If
Ooh,
there,
an
if
avoid.
yeah, I like you should not
Oh,
be drafting Half Life 3 if
oh.
based on the amount of information we know right now, 100%.
At this point.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the news. And we have a very small hype check just looking at the last few games of the year.
Hype check.
So, nothing to really look ahead to.
nope.
The year is basically done. But we will do a quick look back and just kind of round things out. We talked about Constance last episode, and Constance scored an 83.
Yeah,
Not too bad,
did
especially with
well.
the end of
Yeah,
the year scores. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Something I want to check out actually and play. Um, Second on this list, I think this score is low, and that's for Marvel Cosmic Invasion 81. And when I say I think it's low, I mean I think people had an expectation that'd be way higher, including us. We
yes,
gave Sean a lot of crap
yes,
for dropping it
yes,
because we thought he was crazy. But he ended up being at least like within the realm of sanity of making sense.
yeah,
The only thing was on the last episode when we talked about Marvel Cosmic Invasion is I did wonder out loud if there was a little when we were doing our pixel prognostications, whether it was a little bit of fatigue in the genre if it's not doing something different enough. Because there've been so many good ones that have come out and in such frequency over the last 2-3 years um, that it's been like the novelty. Speaking of what are they doing new, the novelty is worn off. I don't know if that's your take. I haven't played it yet. I do plan on buying it. I do plan on playing it. Um, but
yeah. I mean, I think that could be it. I feel like what I've heard other people talking, other podcasters reviewing and talking about the game, it wasn't doing enough different. Like it wasn't, it
hmm,
was a very competent at what it was, kind of that just standard beat 'em up with Marvel characters, but it wasn't doing anything beyond that. And I think the review scores reflect it. I am quite
yeah,
shocked. This was maybe one of like I didn't talk about it earlier, but I was expecting mid to high 80s, and it's an 81. So again, it probably didn't sink your season if you did happen to have it, but like I was pretty surprised to not see it. Like I felt like it was such a
yeah,
narrow range of possible scores for this game, like 85 to 87, like about as narrow as it gets, and for it to kind of fall outside that, I was quite surprised.
I agree. Yeah. Another game, maybe surprising some, although I think this is one that I got right on the money.
Yeah,
Is this
it
one?
is one. Yeah, yeah,
Octopath Traveler Zero
yeah,
at an 83. Yeah.
yeah.
This is the only one I felt like good about. 83 for this game. When you just look at like the games in this list that we're about to talk about or that we have talked about that it surpassed by 2 points is
hmm
crazy
I know.
for this game. It's been out there for a while. People have known about it and people have been a bit skeptical of its ability just because it falls kind of somewhat outside of the, I guess, traditional Octopath franchise. 83, good score.
It is good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it would be a decent, you know, a, a little bit lower than the other two games, and
Yeah.
it's right there.
I just a quick aside. I really want to play the Octopath games. I just don't
Mm,
think I can ever bring myself to do them. They're
yeah.
very long and very hard, and I don't know if I have it in me.
I started actually playing the Octopath 2 this year. I just found like I love the combat system. The turn-based combat system,
Yeah,
it's a kind of a rock paper scissors sort of style, um,
yeah,
breaking locks and things like that. I love it. It's one of my favorite turn-based combat system in any RPG. But I don't know. I really enjoyed the first game, but and I don't think that it's necessarily any worse, but I just couldn't get into any of the characters or the stories of Octopath 2.
yeah.
So,
I've heard the ending, like to finish the second game, you just got to be like, I just don't have that skill set.
right.
I don't-
Yeah, I didn't get far
So
enough to know about
anyway,
that. Yeah, I think I made it,
yeah.
a little under 20 hours, and I was like, I'm falling asleep every time I play this game. So I think I just
Oh
have to put
boy,
it down.
yeah, that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
Okay, the big one, Metroid Prime 4, scoring an 81. I don't know what to tell you here. We've kind of touched on it already. This is, I think, I think we said, like, if it was to drop into the low 80s, it'd be pretty devastating for the franchise. I haven't played it yet. I plan to. Everything I'm hearing about it, funny enough, like, makes me more interested in it. That it's less of a
Yeah.
Metroidvania and more of like this like dungeony world. I'm like, oh, that sounds perfect. Because I love Metroid Prime Remastered. I played it earlier this
Hmm.
year. It probably should be on my game of the year list. I didn't think about that. I haven't really put it on there, but I didn't like the backtracking. I mean, I like
Okay.
some of it, but I didn't like as how much of it there was. Um, whereas this may not have the same. Anyway, 81, quite low.
Quite low.
You know,
There was in a
yeah.
world
All
that I had viewed it like at the beginning of this year. It was kind of settling in at an 81.
yeah.
I thought this
I
was
thought 84, 85 was the floor.
absolute floor. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
have probably at the beginning of the year I would have thought 86, 87 was the floor.
yeah,
And so, but I talked about it last episode. In fairness to me, I was like, I don't like where it's sitting in December. I don't like the kind of the narrative around it right now. I am a little bit worried about this, and I was quite higher, I think, higher on Cosmic Invasion, and I posited to you whether or not people should drop it. Looks like it wouldn't have mattered
yeah.
either way. You pretty much,
It didn't matter. They
yeah,
both, yeah. I think we said that too. They'll
yeah,
probably end up the same
yeah,
score. They'll probably end up at like an 85 or 86. Nope, they both ended up at an 81.
81, yeah. You should
Yeah,
have dropped them both for Octopath Zero. That's what you should have done.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy. But I think some of the narrative that we were talking about last time just took hold, and some of that stuff just, until I play it myself, I, it's gonna be hard to say if that's a worthwhile score.
right.
But it definitely soured me a little bit myself on the
Yeah,
game, right? To hear such a yeah. Next up, Terminator 2D No Fate. This just came out,
it
so
came
this
out
score
though.
is probably one.
It did make it
Yeah, it came out. It
eventually.
finally made
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Good on it. 76.
yeah,
Not bad.
yeah.
Not too shabby. So that's nice. I kind of want to play this one also. Look,
Hmm.
lots of good games, little licensed titles here. And then the last one, which I think is the real story of the month, is Skate Story. Skate Story settling in at 84, really kind of delivering what I've been a little bit like I wasn't sure what to make of this game, and that's why I haven't been not as high on it as others, but 84, pretty good.
It is good. Yeah, I think I predicted it to be a little lower. 80. I want to say 82 or 81. I had predicted. This is another one you got right on. Is 84 when you're
Oh, really?
yes. So
Look at me.
look at you, look at you go. You had a good end to the year here. So yeah, no, it looks good, and it kind of is a game that I had known about. Hadn't really looked too much into it, and it was right around Steam Next Fest, the most recent one they've had here in the fall, that it kind of put it back on my radar. I didn't play it, but I heard lots of people talking about it from the demo that they had at the Steam Next Fest. It looked really good, at least the video, the clips that I had seen of it. So I was a little more confident. Again, it's a Devolver published game, which gives it a little bit more of a oomph behind it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, 84 is a good score for a game like this, coming out in early December.
I think I think it's fair to say, maybe not without overcommitting here, Marcus. I'm pretty sure we're going to end up doing a Devolver episode in 2026. I think that's a
I feel
pretty,
like I really would like to do a little bit more deep dive on
yeah,
these games because I think they had a really
yeah,
good year. I think they did
I
Ball
think
Pit
so.
as
Last year might
well.
have been a bit of an outlier. We may have to
Yeah,
like park 2025, but absolutely, I think that'll be a good one for us to do. Yeah. And no pixel prognostications this week because there's nothing left to predict, at least until we get into January. So, with that, that's going to do it for us. That was Hype Factor episode 15. Before we kind of do our regular closeout, given that this is our wrap up for the year, I did want to say a few thank yous. So, first off, to our guests, I want to say thank you to Steve Fallon from Fantasy Critic. If you haven't already done so, please make sure you go take a look at the Fantasy Critic Discord and to their Patreon. I can't mention enough that it's a small team, mostly Steve, that makes this all possible. So please make sure you remember what enables all of this, including this podcast doesn't exist without the efforts of that team. So make sure you're going over there. And Steve, hope everyone over in your world is doing well. And to Kyle Stevenson from the Trophy Room and 61ND, again, thank you for being so gracious with your time this year and your insights. Everyone, please make sure you go watch the Indie Game Awards, a real celebration of games. That's the plug for the Indie Game Awards, which 61ND is running, and it's going to be the Game Awards you should be watching.
that's right. I
To
think it's on
Sean
the
Capri,
18th. Just on the Indie Game Awards. It's on the 18th. We're recording a few days before that. This episode will be out before the 18th. So you'll get your
yeah,
reminder in. You'll still be able to catch it live. But even if you don't, go back and watch it. Go
watch
back
the
and watch it.
VODs.
Yes.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Go and support the team. And then to Sean Capri, Sean, thank you again for your time. Always bringing a unique perspective to the gaming content, one that's fresh, different, and we were learning so much from you. Everyone should go check out what they're doing over at Carpo Gaming. They just had their game of their year, or it, anyway, just go check it out. It was worth it. It was a good time. There's so much happening over there that's worth engaging with. So, and then lastly, to Dan from Canada, thank you again for giving your insights into Critics Royale and Super League. Please, if people out there that are listening are looking for leagues or looking for communities to talk about Fantasy Critic, consider jumping into the Fantasy Critic Discord. Connect with Dan. He can obviously lead you to all those great things that are happening over there. Marcus, to you, you do so much that makes this all possible, including, you now have 3 podcasts on the go and you do so
Yes.
much of the back end work. So thank you, because you really drive the ship when it comes to getting this stuff out there. So thank you. And I want to say thank you to all the listeners. So, I mean, this is a bit of a passion project for you and I. It's obviously really niche talking about Fantasy Critic within the gaming space. It's focused on this like one aspect of games that we both find super interesting amongst many others. But hopefully to all those listeners, you found this entertaining, informative. Maybe you found something that connected with you. So thank you so much for listening. That's always a nice thing to do. And Marcus, anything you want to say before we kind of did the final wrap up?
Well, you did it so eloquently. I'm not really sure that there's much I could add. Thanks to all our guests. I will say that we can formally announce we have been recruited. Dan has reached out. He's tagged us. We are in the Fantasy Critics Super League this coming year.
Yeah.
So I think we'll either we're gonna sink or swim. I think on our
Oh yeah, I
yeah.
think we're probably gonna. Well, at least for me, it's gonna be tough. I'm gonna have a couple more leagues this year, so I'm not used to managing that, juggling that many. But we're gonna give it a shot. At least it'll keep us engaged with that crew over there. So
Yes.
that'll be nice.
They were
Very good
debating.
idea.
I don't
Very
know
good
if you
plug.
caught this. They were debating the promotion relegation
Mm,
best format for because they're going to change things up. There's so many people, kind of like I think Dan talked a little bit about when he was on, but
yeah.
there's just so many people. They like starting out at the bottom. It would take you years and years to be able to potentially, even if you're winning your league every year, to
Yeah.
make it up to that championship bracket. So they were debating different methods for maybe speeding that up a little bit. So yeah, you should go. I don't know if the vote is still on, but I voted on one. There's 3
Right.
options for people to do it. So yeah, very
Yeah,
cool.
that's why it's always active over there.
So
Go take a look. It's a good place to get info and resources as well.
yes,
Um, well, with that, thank you everybody for a great 2025. Marcus, where can everybody find you if they want to connect with you?
Blue Sky is probably the easiest way. My handle over there is Marcus O'Neill 79. And like John said, I do 2 other podcasts, Tiny Game Chronicles, where me and my good friend Michael discuss a tiny game every other week. That's been a lot of fun to do. We're going to be coming out with our Game of the Year episode shortly. Christmas Day, I think, is scheduled to come out. So recording that, I think, tomorrow. And then another relatively new podcast, Brothers from Another Mothership, do with friends of mine, friends of ours. John's good friends with all of these guys as well. And we just talk about video games, argue about video games, and it's a good time. So that's a monthly show. So if that sounds interesting, you can check that one out too.
And that's for me, also on Blue Sky at John32. You can also find Hype Factor there, both on Blue Sky and X. We're both posting over there pretty regularly. And as we mentioned, look out for the 2026 season preview episode coming out soon, which will be out sooner than you think, because we really want to make sure we get that to you with all of our thoughts and insights before your draft. Hopefully giving you everything you need to be ready to go to make your selections. Finally, if you've liked what you've heard from Marcus and I, please consider giving us a positive 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. It is always much appreciated. Until next time, everybody, get hyped.
Remember, the information provided is for entertainment purposes only. Hype Factor does not guarantee the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of any advice or predictions offered. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you are solely responsible for any decisions you make based on the information provided. We strongly encourage you to fantasy critic responsibly. And remember, this is just a game, and in no way impacts your status as a gamer. Hype Factor cannot be held responsible for any damages resulting from bad picks, drops, or overall Fs on your season.